It's a wonderful, wonderful day again that I take this opportunity to welcome you to this podcast here, Coaching for Impact. And today we are tackling a very, very good topic. It's close to my heart. Nadini Ochieng is my name and my co-host here.
Newton Ciele, it's always a pleasure to be here at Coaching for Impact.
Now, Newton, I suffer from OCD. I am a perfectionist. So the topic for today is quite close to me. Progress and not perfection. What can you help me with that?
You know, I'll always say that perfection happens in movies.
Yes.
And I think it's very theoretical. So let me approach it from a perspective about leadership. One of the things that we tend to teach people that is if you strive for perfection, you really get to miss out on opportunities to be able to learn from some of the small mistakes that you're able to, to be able to pick on. And I think that's very important. From where I sit, not that there's anything wrong with seeking to be perfect, but sometimes that can really drag you because the world as it is not perfect.
Wow. Now that hits home hard. Actually, as I'm thinking of it, I'm reflecting a lot. You know, when I got married, I was so keen on how my things are, that even if you moved my book that was on the stool, I would be crazy about it. Why did it move? Now, slowly, life is teaching me when kids come along that some of these things...
You are not the boss.
That you are not the boss. But Newton, when you talk about, we are talking about progress. How does one note when there is progress?
I think from where I sit, for me, it's really just being able to see where was I before and where am I today? Because think of it in terms of steps, right? If where I was before, I can see that I've been able to move maybe 5 meters, I think I've been able to make progress. I'm using that distance from where I was and where I am now to see that I'm actually, I'm sort of moving in a positive direction. The biggest concern is also the opposite, because when you don't have progress, either you have stagnation or you have decline. And it also means that when you look at where you are today, it's not any different from where you are yesterday or probably a couple of months back. And worse is when you even realize that, in fact, things are even becoming worse. And that means that you're declining. So I think moving and being able to improve, grow, or progress, to me is much more important than perfection.
Okay. I get that, but we are talking about stagnation, which is a very good point. So when we look at stagnation, Newton, it basically means you are unable to take any other next step. So are we saying that because we are talking about perfection, we are saying that people who tend to be driven by perfection get so afraid in taking the next step?
I guess also if you think about it, that's one way of looking at it. But it could also mean that you will never give people that otherwise just need to be given space to be able to move. Right? They will not move at your speed.
That's a good one.
And that's a challenge. The way I look at movement or stagnation, for that matter, is it could really be in your personal life. It could be in your professional life. It could be in your relationship with your family members. Because I think when you seek out perfection, you're missing out on people that may not necessarily be at the same place where you are, but they are making effort. And being able to recognize that effort allows them to be able to move. Sometimes, as perfectionists, we can tend to be, for lack of a better word, selfish, because you then close the door, and closing that door then, of course, completely then removes the opportunity to be able to really make progress.
Wow. I think my last question on this one, Newton, would be, you are from the medics world. So is perfection something learned, or is it, does it come with genetics?
So it depends on the perspective that you look at it. There's something we normally have in healthcare organizations. We call it highly reliable organizations. Highly, or HROs, highly reliable organizations, in a way, I think you've heard of this Japanese concept called Kaizen, right? And in a way, the way I like about it is that it's continuous improvement that leads to something similar to perfection. Not perfection,
Okay.
but it's continuous improvement. It means you keep eliminating the errors continuously to the point where you really become so highly reliable. You have almost zero errors. But you see that this is as a result of continuous elimination. You can never start at being perfect. And I think that's a very important way to look at it, because if you keep improving and then you become better than you are, then you're moving closer. Might not necessarily be the word to use is perfect, but highly reliable. That's what we use in healthcare.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. I think my part in short would be from the scripture's perspective too. In that the Bible calls us to come to God with our weaknesses. Now, many of the people out there who don't yet know Christ are waiting till they're able to behave themselves well so that God can receive them. And in that case, your wait means that you can die in your sin and never experience the goodness of the Lord. So that's what we are talking about. In that, if we talk about progress, it means that Newton is the movement towards what can be better. It's not necessarily waiting to be better so you can tell that you're moving in that particular direction. And I think for me today, for our audience, I would want to leave that with you, but also to just add and say this, that when we talk about progress, it means that it's something we need to document. Because Newton, I don't believe that we can have progress just in our thoughts. It has to be documented. Is it something that if I'm struggling in an area, have I documented the area? Have I looked at myself? And this is what we call self-awareness. We've gone back to it again and again and again. What are my areas of weakness? Is it for me, as I said when we begin, I have OCD and I tend to want things done in a particular way. But life is teaching me that life is not that way. There is always the curveballs that comes to you, and you have to handle them in that space at that time as you move towards progressing to a better place. That's the only thing I can leave with you today. So keep moving to the positive side, but document the progress.
The progress. Very important. I think our really core message today is that don't seek out perfection, seek out progress. There are areas you can be able to improve. That's what you want to be able to know, that you're becoming better than you were yesterday. The biggest challenge with perfection is that you close out doors that you shouldn't on people that are trying to be able to catch up with you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We want to wish you a lovely week ahead and looking forward to seeing you in our next podcast.
Wow.